here is Brian Stelter with his take on what's really going on here, not on that late night show, but on a different segment on CNN yesterday. SOT 2.
Really, over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. We heard President Trump asked about it yesterday when he was heading home from New York City. He didn't seem to know much about it. He said he would get briefed, and then today, Trump did know all about it. That's exactly what has happened here. This story has trickled up from local news to social media and now to the president's attention. And it's being used, as you said, Brianna, as a political symbol, with MAGA media calling for more forceful punishments and more incarceration. I have to say, some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today, it's eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal, someone who had been a repeat offender. And those questions, I hope they're not lost amid all of the cesspool kind of comments on social media.
All right, first of all, Andrew, it's a lie, okay? We went back and looked at Elon's post and just actually started looking at the comments just to see, is it a cesspool of racist comments? It wasn't, not at all. Most of them had stats about black on white crime. That's what dominated the comments by Elon's followers. So I'm not exactly sure what Stelter is referring to, but he may be employing a trick that the left loves to employ. And I mean it, everybody from Meghan Markle to the CNN anchors. You see one or two bad tweets and you make that the narrative. You know, you can give me a break. You could go to anybody's X feed or Instagram feed or any feed and find one or two comments that are nasty or ignorant or what have you, and try to blow that up into your own personal narrative. I was attacked. I was under withering attack. It's like, okay, two people said something inappropriate. Grow up. And I guarantee you that's what he's doing there, because the left loves the narrative of it's only the racists who are responding to this hideous crime, and it's the racists who want to make this about black on white crime. The truth is, as you know, the vast majority of Americans watching these crimes, and there have been many of them over the past 5 to 10 years that we've seen on camera, are very reluctant to mention the races at all. Very few want to say, gee, I'm seeing a pattern of black people beating the hell out of white people because I'm not a racist and I don't impugn behavior to the masses that I've seen from a few. That's the instinct of most Americans. But the truth is that the left injects race in so many of these crimes and instances that when it happens so obviously in the other direction, and they don't even cover the crime. They don't cover it by not mentioning the race. They don't cover it at all. Of course, we're going to stand up and say, gee, A, I see a pattern, and B, I see a pattern in your media behavior that compels me to point out the dynamic that you seem to be willfully omitting.
Yeah, it's not only true, as you say, that if 500,000 conservatives get together and one of them is wearing a swastika because he's a Nazi, that's the guy that's the guy in the picture. That is every single time. That is the guy in the picture. So they always do that and smear us in that way. But the other thing is this, and I think this is part of the intention, and it's part of the system, and it works really well for them, is that if you tell people they can't see what they see, you are encouraging racism, not snuffing it out. If you tell a woman that she shouldn't be more nervous when a black guy in a hoodie gets in an elevator with her than she is when a businessman in a suit gets in the elevator with her, eventually she is going to become a racist. She's going to say, well, I don't want to say this because everybody's going to yell at me, but I notice it's the black guys who make me afraid. This is the argument I have. Listen, I know people who are genuine bigots, and I sometimes say to them, I don't think you're seeing this right. And they say, I don't care. I don't care. All I know is I've been mugged 3 times, and every time it was by a black guy. And I'm not going to be silenced about that. When you silence people, you make them angry, they stop thinking straight, and they start saying, things that can, in fact, be hateful. Listen, I once talked to a DA who was as leftist as far to be a prosecutor, who was as far left as possible to be. And she sat there with me and she described what kind of crimes each race commits.
surprised.
So, if you find a Jewish guy, he's going to commit if he's a criminal, he's going to commit a financial crime. A black guy is going to commit a street crime. And she went on, and she was talking about like Latvians. I mean, she had the whole thing laid out. That's just part of culture. That's the way culture works. It isolates people, and it isolates people according to the ways that people isolate themselves, which are race and money and class and all kinds of different things. And so that we're not supposed to mention this makes the racists, it gives the racists credibility. When a Nick Fuentes comes out and says, nobody ever talks about the blacks, but the blacks do this and that. And people, I know young people, they sit and listen to him and go, that's true. Nobody ever mentions that, but there's some truth to that. And it gives him credibility, which he doesn't deserve. If you let people speak openly and discuss things openly and stop calling them damn names every time they say something that doesn't adhere to your point of view, you will get to the truth eventually, or you'll get closer to it than we are now. Listen, the reason this moment is so important, and I don't mean in any way to minimize the actual crime of that beautiful young woman who's escaping from Ukraine of all places and gets killed on a light rail. I mean, I don't mean to minimize the details of that crime. But in terms of the bigger story, it is this fight that we are in, and this is a death fight because they don't want to lose this power. This is the power with which they have run the country for 50 years. This is the time when we are going to find out if we can take the narrative back because we're right. That's the reason. If we take it back because we're hateful, if we take it back because we're just angry, then I think we're going to lose it eventually, because that's not the way Americans want to live. But if we take it back because what we are saying is true, the guy did kill her because she was white. But more importantly, this is a much more likely crime to happen than the death of George Floyd, if the death of George Floyd was a crime at all. And so they absolutely manufactured nationwide riots around an anomaly, an exception to the rule. But they don't want us to point out that the rule is the rule and talk about those things that are indicative of how this country is run, how this country's culture fails people, and how the left has failed in building those cultures. That's what they're trying to escape. That's the power they're trying to hold on to, and that's the power we're trying to take away from them, because they shouldn't have it. They shouldn't have it. They're in the wrong. They're corrupt, and they have done great damage to this country, more damage by having the control of the media and the academies than in any other way. And that's why they hate Donald Trump so much, because he knows it and he does something about it.
Exactly right. So I'm looking at the update. Yesterday we told the team no one had covered it. I mean, virtually nobody.
Zero.
It's not virtually. No one had covered it in the mainstream media at all. And now the update today, New York Times as of 4 p.m. Monday, nothing. NPR as of 4 p.m. Monday, nothing. CNN posted first article at 3 p.m. Monday. Washington Post reposted an Associated Press article at 5 p.m. The Associated Press posted nothing until 4 p.m. Monday. This all broke over the weekend. They had had 48 hours by this point to get on the story. They wouldn't, because they viewed it as a Charlie Kirk story or a MAGA story. You have, on Monday morning, only CBS This Morning ran a story. Nothing from the Today Show, nothing from Good Morning America, not interested whatsoever. And then Politico drops an article which does not mention that the defendant is black and that Zarutska is white, and includes no photo of either the perpetrator or the victim, includes only a photo of Donald Trump. You cannot make this crap up. So and by the way, you don't have to be a journalist to understand that. I'm just going to get very frank with you about commercial incentives. When you have a girl this beautiful, this stunningly beautiful girl, in any other circumstance, Politico, AP, Washington Post, New York Times, all of them would be running a huge photograph of her, because beautiful people attract attention, whether they're victims or not. And they understand that the commercial incentive would be to stop and look at this person and say, what's going on around her? And for Politico not to include her picture, it tells us everything we need to know. They didn't want the narrative to be pushed out there that it's a white victim and a black perpetrator, because they believe that's going to somehow endanger black lives. That's what their take will be. Just like we've heard from people like at the New York Times and elsewhere that just discussing this kind of thing endangers Black bodies, we've heard before. And so we have no choice but to drag them to the story, kicking and screaming. When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold? Well, you'd be right. Whether as a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold. And so they created something special. Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit right now. Just text MK to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for a rebate in free metals of up to $10,000. So make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before September 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and get your free info kit. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.